UFC 279.
9.
Khamzat Chimaev versus
Juicy.
Nate Diaz. What did you think of this? When this
So
got
juicy.
made, what were you thinking? How did you first react when you saw this fight?
So I've changed my opinion on it a few times. I keep going back and forth. But at first I was like, that's rough for Nate. Like everyone probably did, right? I was like, yeah, I think they're literally feeding him to the wolves there.
The
The
balls.
actual wolf. The balls. And then I was like, I was just thinking about Nate. And I was like, that's a 5-round fight though. And I thought about Khamzat's last fight where he didn't blow his load on Burns, but he looked tired and it was 3 rounds. I'm like, Nate's not going anywhere. Like Nate will zombie it up and then just clip you and start teeing off on you. So I think it's going to be closer than people think. This might get clipped and memed off, but I think it's actually a closer fight than people think. But yeah, it's still a very favourable matchup for Khamzat. What do you think?
The funny thing going into it is like what you said firstly. I've gone back and forth on this, right? I've gone back and forth this multiple times, and I heard obviously Dan Hardy came out and said that somebody's going to get an assault charge for this or something crazy.
Oh, mate, yeah.
Always one to sort of speak his mind. But it is true when you think about Nate Diaz just fought Leon Edwards, and no one was having this conversation. This wasn't even a conversation. This was a conversation of like, cool, yeah, I want to watch this fight. So firstly, there's a bit of a red flag there. Why are we not doing that for that?
Sure.
But secondly, it's the thing is with this fight is the first thing about Nate Diaz is you always run the risk with him just getting elbowed, opening up a massive bit of scar tissue, and the ref calling.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like, and that's why I always get worried with. And I thought it against. I thought it was going to happen against Leon, especially with Leon's elbows. I think it could quite easily happen again with this. The one thing that I find interesting, right, is coming into this fight, a lot of people like what you just said, and I do agree, is like, this is a 5-round fight. So you can never count Nate Diaz out. Now, the interesting thing about Chimaev is that last fight against Burns, that was the biggest fight of his life, more eyeballs on it than ever before. The first really competitive opponent, and the fact that he wanted to go out and sort of have that wild fight, have that war, get that under his belt sort of thing, right? And obviously we saw how crazy that his coach got, because realistically, Khamzat Chimaev could have stuck him behind his jab, moved a couple of takedowns, sprinkled him in, and won quite comfortably, I believe. I believe he could have probably done that. But he didn't do that. He wanted the stoppage, and he also... It was a lack of IQ, 100%, but he wanted to get that war. So now, the question, why I'm so interested in this fight is, the question now to me is, Khamzat Chimaev has sort of gone into this realm of notoriety where he's in a really difficult spot, right? Because if he beats Nate Diaz, if he just beats him, not convinced, if he just beats him, he goes on to that title. So the question is now, does he just try to win and trying to do everything, game plan what he needs to do to win and move on to the title? Or does he get brought into this emotional battle with one of the biggest stars in the world and try and have this spectacular... Because if he does, bearing in mind that he's still inexperienced, he's still an inexperienced fighter, especially in the sort of in the top of the league. And Nate Diaz is as big as it gets. There's Conor McGregor and there's Nate Diaz, and McGregor's here, but Diaz is here, you know? He's as big as it gets. So does he come in and fight with his ego? Because if he does, I think that's where you get that gas in, right? That's when you start getting tired.
It's actually a really interesting question. I think he comes from a really smart team, All Stars, and if you look at last time, like they were like pretty annoyed with him after the Gilbert Burns fight. They were like, "What are you doing? You nearly threw it all away." You know, so I think it'll be a lot more disciplined, especially someone that's like renowned for their durability. I think he comes from a smart team, but it's easy to say that I'm going to go in, feel him out, then you've got Diaz talking shit in front of you, and you're like, I need to hit this guy. Then you hit him, and you might hit him again. You might even hit him again. You might even hit him again after that, but he's not going anywhere.
And then he slaps you around the chops and sticks his middle fingers up.
What, motherfucker?
This is the thing, right? And now you've got the entire... Because this is the thing about Khamzat Chimaev. He's transcended himself into this star of where he's sort of in a lose-lose, but not in a lose-lose position, but he's always on the back foot because he always has to outdo this star power that he has, right? And that's a difficult thing to do. Obviously, that's what made McGregor so special, is because he said all these things and then he backed up, because that's the difficult thing.
Yeah.
And Khamzat has done that to this point. But it's like what you said, is if he starts getting a little bit in his head, Nate Diaz, because it happens to everyone, he drops his guard quite literally for a second, and then bang, he just gets clipped by something. And then it could just, you don't know what sort of fight we're going into the 4th and 5th, where we've never seen Khamzat Chimaev, especially in a fight this magnitude.
Yeah, shit unravels.
You see him caught in a triangle, and Nate's just on his back like this, and he rides off into the sunset. Contract with the UFC done.
Oh, mate. Yeah. That's another interesting talking point about the fight, to be fair. It's his last fight on the contract, so I think they are trying to give him probably the worst matchup possible for him. But, like, if he goes and beats Hums like that, it's a literal big middle fingers up to the UFC.
That's the most Nate Diaz thing you could do.
He'll literally do that today.
That's the most Nate Diaz. The interesting thing, I think, and then we'll come on to the next fight, but when you actually hear Nate Diaz talk about the UFC, I heard him on Ariel Helwani, he doesn't even really want to cut, he doesn't want to cut ties. He just wants to go and do he just wants to go box Jake Paul. And realistically, I don't know why we're being around it. He wants to box Jake Paul for 60 million or something ridiculous, and then probably come back. Because the thing is, a lot of people, and I feel passionately on the Nate Diaz spot, but a lot of people said he's waffling and he's chatting rubbish. But when you actually listen to what Nate Diaz was saying in that interview, right, he goes on to say, and basically says, I've been around this sport since it basically started, which is true. He's been one of the biggest names since the beginning of it. True. He's done everything in this sport, obviously apart from win a title, which is true. He holds the first win over McGregor, like arguably one of the biggest wins ever, really, one of. So he says now, he's like, there's not a lot for me to do. There's not a lot for, that's why he said, like, either I fight, can't remember, someone or Francis. And obviously he's not going to fight Francis, but
I think he would,
yeah, 100%. And I would I would love to see it. But he's got a point, right? There's not really much left for him to do, because you could say, oh, but he hasn't fought this person, he hasn't fought. It's like, well, yeah, he's been doing this for the last 20 years. Like, yeah, there's like, this person's a big name, but like, he's been doing this to big names, like, he's been having this, like, there's nothing too exciting for him. So, like, I don't even think the belt excites him that much, to be honest with you. I thought he was gonna leave off of that, but no, you're right. I don't think he's massively. And anyway, I think he sort of knows that's just going to be a bit of a sticky one to sort of navigate. So I think that we're going to see him chuck up a triangle in the 4th. I think we're going to see him choke him out.
Oh, really?
I think we're going to see double middle fingers.
Really? I'd love that. I'm not going to lie.
The thing is, like,
that'd be vintage Diaz.
It's going to be hard to do. And Gilbert Burns, couldn't really get. The thing is, as well, Khamzat will get into a war, but he's not dumb. And he knows, like, if Nate's on his back, like, just disengage.
Sure.
So, like, well, actually, because this is next week, I keep forgetting. I'm going to pull a prediction. Yeah,
so
I'm going to pull a
So
prediction.
good that's next week.
Yeah, I want one from
me.
Since it's next week, I keep thinking this is ages in advance.
Yeah, because we'll recap next week. I don't think Chimaev will stop him, but I do think he'll win by decision. But I think he'll get caught like Leon did, but still win. And then Nate will kind of get all the clout of winning without actually winning.
I don't think that Nate's gonna lose this fight. Like, in a sense where the fans, you see what I'm saying? Where he's just gonna, he never does. He never does. He didn't lose against Leon, and Leon beat him for 4 minutes 30 seconds of 24 minutes 30 seconds, which is kind of crazy. Like I said earlier, though, I'm always worried about Diaz. I'm always worried about the cuts, and I don't want to see it end like that. I think 2.5 times out of 10, I think Nate Diaz wins, and I want to see nothing more than one of those 2.5 times out of 10. That's how I'm going to say it. I'm sitting on the fence. I'm going to say Khamzat takes it, but I want a Nate Diaz triangle submission more than anything in the world. Which brings us on to our next fight, which is the co-main. There's been a lot made about this card, about how stacked or unstacked it is, but this is quite a juicy co-main. Tony Ferguson, Li Jingliang at 170. Obviously, Tony on his 170, not debut. Obviously, he's fought there before, but very long time since he's done that.
But his resurgence. Why don't they call him the Leech? He hasn't even got like a grappling style, really.
Maybe just, I don't know.
Not a striker. I don't know. It rolls off the tongue a little bit better, because I always feel like I'm just butchering it and being really offensive to his actual name.
Give
so
it
I
a
like
go.
Leech.
It's a good effort. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, though? I feel like I'm just saying it shit and being offensive. But I like Leech. Li Jing, Liang. Okay. But yeah, Leech versus T Ferg. I'm worried about Tony Ferguson, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like, he's taking shots from Gaethje, and the Leech is definitely, maybe not as good as Gaethje, but probably, like, more powerful. You know, there's weight classes for a reason. So I'm worried that, if I'm being honest, I'm worried that he's going to get hurt quite a bit. I know he's at Jackson Wink now. I don't know if that's going to make... I don't know. I'm kind of excited, but I do think that Tony Ferguson's going to get hurt quite a bit.
Well, he only just got KO'd very recently. Very, very recently, which...
Oh, by Chandler, yeah. I actually forgot about that as well. Yeah,
which sort of worries me a lot, because it hasn't been a long time. Now, I know it's at 170, so at least we've not got the cut to sort of factor in and whatnot. But the thing is, for this fight, it's a horrible match. I mean, there's not going to be a good matchup. You're not going to get a good matchup when you're Tony Ferguson, because you're a massive name. So you're going to have to come up against someone fairly legit. The problem with the Leech is he had that performance against Khamzat, and for a lot of people that maybe weren't as familiar with the Leech, probably just thought, who's this scrub? He just got picked up, and but what people probably didn't know is he is very legit. And in his last night out, had a very brutal knockout win. Just to remind it, I think that was his 11th or something, 11th knockout win. Just to remind everyone that, no, he hits hard and he's quick. So...
Did he knock out Ponzinibbio?
I can't remember.
He knocked out Ponzinibbio, I think.
Who was his last fight? You know what? I'm so annoyed that he said this, because I thought, before I jump on, I'm just going to remind myself, refresh who he knocked out. But he had a knockout win. This is why we need Joe. Joe, pull this up for me, please. Next week we'll have this locked in. But
Muslim
Salikov, yeah, no. So that wasn't an easy fight for him, and that was and again, not a lot of name value in Salikov, but he's a good fighter, and again, Leech hits hard. And that's the thing with Tony. I was watching it on live stream, and I was like, we've got the old Tony back. He's smiling, he's dropping elbows from the bottom. I was like, this is easy. And then obviously Chandler throws an absolute Hail Mary, and that was the saddest I've been in this sport since I became a fan of the sport. That was the saddest moment I witnessed.
It's hard to watch sometimes, things like that. Like, if a knockout makes you feel sad, you know what I mean? It shouldn't make you feel sad. Like, you should be like, but if you're like, like, I don't want to see him get, like, KO'd, like, not even a TKO, KO'd, you know? Because he's won a lot of fights, and he's such a good fighter, but he's taken so much damage in his career. He's given out a lot also.
The Leech hits hard, man.
No, the Leech
he hits hard. Now, where I want to see this go, really, I want to see this go to the floor as quick. Leech is a black belt, but you know, there's levels. Yeah. There's levels to it, and obviously Tony's a different level of MMA sort of grappler than most. So he's a black belt, but he's not as credentialed as Tony on the mat. That Travis Luter black belt's a different sort of. It's a whole different game,
and he submits a lot of guys in MMA.
So I want to see this. I want to see this go down to the mat as quickly as possible. Like, even if I can sort of see it playing out, how Leech may even just, because he throws big, and I can just see him even just clipping him with something, or just sort of stinging him, and maybe even drops him, and then they sort of tumble a little bit. And that's when I think Tony's going to be in his element. Yeah, that's what I want to sort of see, and hopefully we see a resurgence of the Dark Knight, because it's a tough matchup. But I'm gonna force you to a prediction. How do you see this one playing out?
Unfortunately, I think that Leech is going to KO him in spectacular fashion. Left hook, pulling it. Don't know why.
No, he throws. He throws big opposite sides, right? So he, like you said, he'll throw boom, like winds up big on both sides. So those uppercuts and those left hooks, like, they come heavy, and they come back from China, quite literally.
They're wild, but
It reminds me of that geezer. I can't remember who it was now. Who beat that geezer, and he was like, "Yeah, go back to China," and everyone was like, "What? Why?
Yeah.
Why did you say that? That was not okay. But you...
Worst PR move ever. Like, why would you say that? Just say, I
think it was Cody Durden.
It was.
Mikhaev.
Mikhaev was like, I'm going to kill him.
Because what you have to remember sometimes is, although, yeah, these are elite level athletes on one of the biggest stages in the sport, but you can still just be a redneck who won a few fights on a regional scene and they get chucked in it, you know? Yeah. And that sort of happens every now and again. But yeah, so you're gonna go Leach. I'm gonna be hopeful.
Leach.
I'm gonna be hopeful. What I know that this is, you could say this for anything, but Michael Chandler threw that kick. He spoke about it before. He threw that as a rangefinder. He'd never drilled it. You know what I mean? It was a 1 in a million, and I think it really just came at a time which obviously was going to make it look even worse for Tony Ferguson in the landscape.
So dramatic.
Yeah,
dramatic.
It was brutal. So I'm going to go with Tony. I'm going to go with Tony submission. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tony submission, and I think he might catch him in a, I don't know, some sort of front choke series, just on a scramble, on a little wild one.
Yeah, I'd really like that. I really would. But
you're being more rational.
My heart's telling me one thing.
Yeah,
you're going with your heart. I'm going with my head.
I always do. I always want the underdog story as well. So I'm always sort of.
I love T-Ferg as well. He's such a lunatic, but he's such a sick fighter.
But yeah, this card's not thoroughly stacked, but it's got fun fights on it. So I've got one more that I want to talk about.
Yes, I like.
You know what I'm going to say?
I know exactly.
Kevin Holland versus D-Rod.
Versus D-Rod. I love D-Rod. I love calling him D-Rod.
What are you thinking for this one?
D-Rod. I like this fight. D-Rod's good. He's underrated. I think he's not got that like name value necessarily, but Holland's just so good. Just so good to watch. When he's talking shit, he's like bum hitting you with like sharp, long shots. I like this fight a lot. Do you want a prediction now, or do you want to say how you feel? How do you feel?
No, I'm with you 100%. I think the reason D-Rod, which I definitely one of the best names, by the way. I feel like it's like
so simple.
It's like a Southern American baseball player name.
Yeah. I think you have to say D-Rod.
He's tatted up from Cali, loves the smoke. But I 100% with you. A seriously underrated fighter. Like, seriously underrated. I can't remember off the top of my head what accolade he's got, but it's something like the most significant strikes landed in welterweight history, or something like that. He's highest output.
He's
got like a 6 or 7 strikes landed per minute. He's got crazy hands, like seriously good boxing, really nice fundamentals, like really quick 1-2.
Just like heavy like bombs. But I know I've said that.
But the thing I love about D-Rod is because he has that Street Fighter style. His punches come from those weird angles. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily like a conventional boxing, like 1-2 back to the chin. It's sort of a little bit weird, a little bit unorthodox, but they land. Yeah, they swing. Yeah, a little swang, a little swang and bang. But technically, and the thing is with his stature as well, he's got such long arms that his takedown defense is so good as well. He's hard to take down, so he keeps it standing very well, and he's very fucking good on the feet. So this is an exciting fight because you've got to remember as well, is like Kevin Holland. We're sort of seeing a new Kevin Holland because, like you said, like I love it when he's just popping people, he's dropping, but he's got that sort of karate vibe. Then he's popping back, he's just chatting to you. But the thing is now is like he spoke about not that long ago. He spoke about having this mushroom trip and that he saw himself becoming champion. And I've heard people talk about this before, and it's quite interesting. He sort of changed his whole approach. And you look at his last couple of fights, and at welterweight, obviously, because he's moving down, we've sort of seen this new version of him, like a lot more switched on, a lot more serious. Like his wrestling's obviously, because he's always been a good grappler, right? I think the narrative was a little bit off on him because of that. You got to remember with Kevin Holland is, again, this is a passion point. I'm a massive Kevin Holland fan. Yeah, massive Kevin Holland fan. But the narrative was off on him because he got out grappled by Marvin Vettori, right? Most recently. Yeah. But what a lot of people forget is he's going into these fights eating to get to 185. Like, he's having big meals on fight week to get to 185, right? And then he's coming against, like, orcs, like Marvin Vettori. Yeah,
the Orc.
Who's like an actual tank, who's probably walking in there like close to 200 pounds. So
Easily.
I don't. There was obviously a skill deficit, but I think it was more just a size thing more than anything. But he went away, he worked on his wrestling, and he's a black belt under Travis Lutter. He's got tricky ground game. Like, he's one of the best off it. Yeah,
Long
like
limbs.
He's one of the best off his back in the UFC. Like you look at his attacks, like
Dangerous.
because he can.
Well.
This is the thing, right? He can submit you, but then he's got things like elbows, and we saw him what he done against Jacare, right? So he's seriously skillful. So he's added on that takedown defense and that little bit of aggressive wrestling as well. So like both sides of the coin. And now he's gone down to welterweight. He hit hard at middleweight. He was knocking people out. He knocked out Joaquin Buckley.
He hits sharp. He's just like so fast. They're just clean shots, you know. And boom, boom, 1, 2.
The thing is as well, it's like when you have that karate style, right? And even someone like Rob, because where you blitz, like you'll know, where you like blitz in, you're coming with all your momentum and all your force in, and those sharp shots, like they're heavier, right? So
yeah. If someone moves into it,
exactly. It's like when two forces meet. So it's like, he's not the biggest hitter, but he's sharp and he's accurate. So you start chucking him in that that 170 pool, like I think he's a serious contender. But how do you see this one playing out?
I think the speed will be a factor for D-Rod. I think he'll be at a speed deficit, even though Holland is coming down from a higher weight class. I think the speed will be a problem. In terms of predictions, D-Rod's going to be hard to finish. He's inherently tough. He's
Mexican.
Big, he's strong. He's not going anywhere. Mexican. You're going to have to put him out, you know. You're going to have to literally put him out like unconscious. But I do think Holland can do that. I think he can run it into something sharp. I'd give the advantage to Holland, but I wouldn't be shocked either way. Very, very good matchup from the UFC, and a nice addition to the card. You know, that main event's great, but I don't want it being like boxing where it's just top heavy and we're sitting through prelims that we don't care too much about to get to the main event. We've got 3 juicy fights there, so I'm excited this one's been added. But I would swing towards Holland.
Decision? You saying a decision?
I think he'll stop him. It's 3 rounds. Yeah, I think he can stop him in 3 rounds.
That's like you said. He's gonna be difficult to put away, but I can see him doing it. I can see him doing it. I'm gonna play a little bit safer. I'm gonna go Kevin Holland decision. I think he does it over the points, but he's finished like 2 of his last opponents, and he's on a little bit of a roll. He's got that momentum, and
he's got that mushroom trip.
Yeah, he's got that mushroom trip strength. Watch out for D-Rod. Like he's like we're saying, his striking's legit.
Savage.
But the last one that I wanted to bring up on this card is, I don't know if you're as familiar with him, Jalton Almeida. So this is the thing I like about a lot of these cards now, is because obviously there's so many Dana White's Contender Series fights and things of that nature, is like you're having a lot of these fighters come onto the card. So he was a light heavyweight, and as soon as I saw him, I thought, this kid's a problem. He's I'll describe him to you. He's about 6'4", rangy as anything, built like a freak athlete, super quick, super powerful, and has elite like Dagestan level wrestling. Yeah, came out and just done his business, and everyone was like, wow, okay, started paying attention. And then, I think he made his debut at light heavyweight, and then he was like, no, actually, I want to go to heavyweight. Moved up to heavyweight, just packed on a little bit more size, went out against Parker Porter, and finished him in literally not much time at all. And he's fighting, he's stepping in last minute for against Shamil Abdurakhimov at heavyweight. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is, this is his second fight, right? This is his second fight at heavyweight. The only reason I bring it up is just to keep an eye on for him, because he's exciting. And we talk about this new breed of heavyweights when we talk about Tom Aspinall and Romanov and Blades even, you know, and Garn.
Yeah, just new breed of athletes.
Exactly, new breed of athletes, because you can't get away in the heavyweight division being a Derek Lewis. Mate, he's got D1 wrestling, mate. He's got D1 wrestling.
Bombs. Yeah, just stand up, bro.
Best anti-jiu-jitsu ever. But yeah, you can't get away with being one-dimensional anymore in heavyweight division, and people like him are starting to cause problems. But yeah,